joining. Welcome. My name is Holly. I am the owner of the Family Room WA. So I'm based over here in Perth, and my co-host today is Hayley, a doula over in Queensland. So we're going to have some fun across Australia this morning. For myself, am a midwife and a birth doula. I work in a couple of places in Perth, and I'm also available online. And today we're going to be deep diving into doulas, learning all about what they are, what they do, what they can bring to your birth space. So, across to Hayley.
Thank you. Lovely to be here with you, Holly. So I guess I'll just dive straight in. So this week I wanted to present on how doulas work for women. So I've got another sort of focus on talking about how doulas work in with midwives or other people in the provider space. So, but this is more specifically on the women that engage the doula. So, the people we're focusing most on. Okay, so let's see if it's transitioning beautifully. Okay, so just a little bit about me. I'm a birth doula and childbirth educator. I am also a mum of 3 little girls, not so little now, one's 13, 10 and 3-year-old. I was also a surrogate of a little boy who's now 4.5, also a wife of just one. I am a primary school teacher by trade, and fun fact, I was a pole dancing instructor for, about 7 years in there as well. I'm also a bit of a traveler at heart, and I love writing. So that's kind of me. But what is a doula? So it's still a bit of a working definition, but this is a great little, summary. A doula is a trained companion who provides physical, emotional, and educational support before, during, and after birth. But the doula is for the woman, so it's whatever the woman needs, essentially. Are there other kinds of doulas? Yeah, heaps. So there's postpartum doulas. So as a doula, I focus heavily on birth support, and I haven't really engaged deeply in training and working in women in the postpartum space, but it's still a really valuable space. And I focus on one area. There are other doulas that really go deep into conception and fertility. And then there's some that go right across, so they're full spectrum. So they'll help someone on their journey to fall pregnant, support them through that pregnancy, birth, and then into postpartum. And then, of course, at the other end, which not the end, that as the cycle continues, there's also death doulas. So that's a growing industry as well, which they're all really valuable roles. But essentially, in all of those, spaces is what the doulas do, is they hold the space. So they build a relationship with clients based on connection and mutual trust. We learn about our clients' values, their needs, their intentions for their journey, and we work to remove any obstacles or include anything extra that's going to help honour that as much as possible. Sometimes it can help to talk about what a doula doesn't do as well, to help understand how, whether a doula is for you and whether it's, it's what you want out of that relationship. So a doula is it's not a student midwife or a trained midwife, of course. So we don't, we don't ever try and step into that clinical role, and we're not any other kind of medical professional or clinical specialist. So, we're not a nurse, we're not a lactation consultant, we're not psychologists, we're not any of those things. We may be from those backgrounds, but I certainly am not. That's not my, as I said before, my history is in primary school teaching. So I'm very careful not to step beyond my role as support in sort of my scope of responsibilities. You certainly don't want a doula who is trying to heal their own experience either, through their work and their support with others. So that, unfortunately, that's something just to keep an eye out if you are, interviewing and looking to engage with a doula, is just make sure that that's definitely not the vibe you're getting. Another thing that a doula is not a natural birth advocate. Okay, so that means that, like, if you end up having interventions, a cesarean, for whatever reason, by choice, by just a play out of certain circumstances, you're never abandoned. Your doula's by your side. She's right there. It's not the way you birth, it's you that you're being, that's being supported. So yes, we often do work to protect physiology and support physiology. That's often what clients are looking for in their experience, but that's probably more so indicative of just that the general culture is more a medicalized one, so that the people engaging doulas are wanting something that is not the dominant norm. Okay, so but if a woman's like, yep, I'm scheduling a cesarean and I need a doula for this and this, yeah, that you've come to the right place. If you need support, unbiased information, and just unwavering loyalty to whatever you need, and whether it's on a very pragmatic level or more in the spiritual and sort of emotional, that's exactly what your doula's there for. And of course, we're certainly not an advocate for a type of birth. We're not, doulas will support all kinds of birth, as long as they've got the relationship and established all of those important connections and boundaries and all of that kind of thing with the individual clients. But there's it's not about even where you birth or how the baby comes out of your body. It's about again, it's about that relationship and that connection. The other details are not quite just beside the point, but far less important than you and how you feel. So are doulas trained? Are they certified? Yes, some of them. Me, yes, I am. I've done 2 trainings, but not every doula is. So some launch into a whole range and commit to formal training, and continue to do lots and lots of professional development. I do love to do as much as I can, but I've sort of scaled back because there's also the practice is the important part, and I love really getting stuck into just working in with my clients and learning from them as well. So I do sort of take on some trainings, but so one of the more recent ones I've done was spinning babies, but it's it's not there's no sort of formal number of professional development hours or things like that. So we are self-directed in our training, and it's very much about having, don't be afraid to ask those questions of a doula and ask what has she done, what does she particularly value and specialize in her skills, and what does she pride herself in offering. So I guess another sort of area that I do sort of explore a lot is birth choices and human rights in birth, and particularly maternal experience. But I mean, I'm constantly listening to podcasts, reading midwifery research. It's a very personal journey. So definitely talk to the different doulas that you're considering and find out where they've been and where they're going on their journey, and see if that resonates. How do doulas actually work? So doulas, you know, so a lot of people are like, oh, so are you employed by the hospital? Are you, are you out of the birth center? No, we're completely independent. So we usually have to be a self-employed entrepreneur. I think there are some very fledgling government-funded positions for doulas, but it's not sort of flying across the whole country or anything like that. So that's something that some people may be able to look into, but I don't think it's the access is about, is all that equitable at this stage. So so they're privately engaged and hired by couples or women. Sometimes it's a woman birthing on her own and she's looking for that extra support person, or it's a couple looking to journey together and have that extra sort of layer of support and space holding. We don't have a regulatory body. So there is, as you can see, there's the Doula Network Australia little logo there. So we have an association, and there's, I think the DNA are developing a bit of a code of expected conduct or some of those kinds of things, but really there's no governance. So just be conscious of that again, it's very much, in a doula client relationship, it's very, very much about that individual connection and individual trust and sort of establishing and being clear on boundaries. So things that I do is I have like a little, a 2-page document that outlines some of the terms. And we talk through it, all of those sort of, the nitty gritty sort of actual how the support will actually look and play out, and when payments due and all of those kinds of things. If that all falls through, there's not really a go-to body to sort of, to sort of follow up on that or work things out, apart from, of course, the generic sort of, overall industrial relations bodies. So, so just be really clear on the way, that you're negotiating that, and make sure that you're okay with how things are rolling, in the agreements. And I guess even touch base with some previous clients of a doula, if that's something that's available, and sort of just ask about some of those ins and outs, because everyone's different. So okay, so what do we do in sort of in terms of our values, or what do we embrace? So this is sort of me, I guess, but generally a lot of doulas are very similar. So, particularly that unbiased, as impartial as possible, but still fiercely loyal. Very much about providing evidence-based information. As I mentioned, that loyalty, devotion to each client. For me, I'm, passionate about education. So I sometimes call myself an educating doula. I'm deeply trusting of physiology, and I'm clearly not medically trained, and never would try and step into that space without, of course, going down the training pathway. When I'm in, I guess, an advocacy sort of situation, it's very different. So I do a lot of advocacy on mass, I guess, for populations like in our region and even Queensland wide. So, I will speak collectively for, women in accessing maternity care in that context. However, when I am engaged in my doula client relationships and actually supporting clients, I won't speak for them. I will amplify their voice, or I might reiterate something that they have already said. But it's something that I'm very, sort of, I've been exploring and being, more and more clarifying for myself, is that, there's the advocacy aspect in, in each individual's arrangement is very delicate, and very important that that's upheld. Definitely woman-centered, and if it's a couple, I'm very couple-centered. obviously very client-centered, and often we're still supporting not just a couple, sometimes it's a family, so family-centered. So again, it's just wherever the support is needed, that's where it's directed. I guess my mission statement, to sum up, the woman is the expert. I see women as the experts on their own health, on their body, their mental health, their emotional health, their social health, their spiritual health. Very much about empowering. I help women step into their power. So I'm not needed for women to feel powerful. Perhaps the things that I do help them step into their power, but it's not one of those sort of codependent kinds of relationships. So yes, when I'm there, it helps them feel empowered. But if I'm not there, they're not, it's not like all their agency and power is eradicated. So it's that I help them, embrace that and take their power. Very much an advocate and a believer in woman-centered care. So women draw on professional help if it is needed, but she still remains at the center of the care. And that's definitely at the request or need of the woman, not not sort of directed at or to her. And as you can see, sometimes call myself a birth bestie. So just staying wherever a woman needs to go on her journey. And it's a bit of a special space that doulas do get to hang out in. We because we are unregulated, and we are we go across all settings. I birth with people at home, I birth with people in the birth center, I birth with people in private, in public, I go to appointments. I get to feel and be in a lot of different settings, so I can really sort of draw from those experiences and really help people step into their own power. So and with no I don't have to hold on to any sort of, other than my own scope and my own sort of personal code, that I don't have to uphold any facilities policies. I don't have to, sort of adhere to anything other than ensuring that my client is, satisfied, but, not just satisfied, feeling pretty amazing. So it's pretty cool. So this is a little bit about how I have structured my support package. Every doula will work a little bit differently. This is just to sort of give you an idea of what I do. So I guess you can just sort of have a bit of a read of that. So we have lots of appointments. I'm on call. I offer some very detailed education, because I've found that that's definitely been a pivotal part of how I work, is like basically kind of like I just dump everything I know that I know that that each couple would need to know, would roughly need to know, so that prenatally, so that when they're in that birth space, they don't really need to be playing catch up. And we talk a lot about if they've had a previous birth experience, we can sort of digest a lot of that and reflect on that, and or if they haven't, we talk a lot about societal views and family views, and that's a really really valuable exploration. And of course, it's like we do stacks on physiology, because you start with normal birth, start with how body's designed to do it, then you can recognize if things are deviating, rather than having stuff sort of imposed as preventative or fixing. That's sort of after we've done, so part of our education includes that we do some really hands-on stuff called a comfort measures class. And then after we've sort of done, all the education, we're planning for the birth. So it's like a birth mapping session. And then of course I go on call. and then we have a baby, and then we have some debriefing appointments. I've kind of frozen, Holly. Is that? Oh, I can't hear you.
You have a little bit on my end.
Okay.
And it's just gone black, so I think it's trying to figure itself out. We
Okay.
had a lot of rain this morning, so it was a bit cloudy outside. So
Yeah, okay.
Anything to do with it. Sorry.
All right. As long as it's not like doing two weird things. So.
No, the screen's coming through really well.
Okay, cool. Excellent. No worries. All right. So this one's a great question. I already have a midwife. So if you're one of the very clever people that's engaged a known midwife and continuity of care, that's awesome. For some, that might be all they feel they need. But at the same time, just bear in mind, and I think like Rachel Reed says it all. She's Dr. Rachel Reed is one of my sort of go-tos in terms of all things evidence-based birth and physiological birth and education. So she says the expectations that a midwife can protect birth physiology, monitor well-being and progress, liaise with other staff to advocate for the woman, complete documentation, manage complications, and meet all the woman's emotional and physical needs is unrealistic. So if you're birthing in a home birth environment, obviously some of those demands are different. But again, like the home birth midwives I work with, they love having a doula around. We do, it is a bit different the way we interact, but it's still just as valuable for the woman to have that benefit of the two roles that sort of have a bit of an overlap, but it's just wraparound care. So and I can see you sort of chuckling away there, Holly. You know, don't you, how full on that is? And if you get a doula, if you're like, is it a bit of an overkill? You will not regret it. It's just
on a personal note, if I can jump in on that. So I've been a midwife for over a decade now, and I haven't had that many birth experiences with doulas being present as well, but I've never had a bad experience, and I've never known a client to have anything bad to say about having the extra support. And it is amazing. It just takes so much pressure off.
Yeah.
Like me as a midwife to try, all my tips and my tricks and like positioning and like, getting up and being active when I'm also getting called by people outside of that birth room. Like, oh, quick, can you just come do this? Oh, it's break time, you've got to go. Like, he's a strange midwife, she come hang out with you for half an hour. Especially if the person who is the other support person, so not the doula, but usually like a partner or a family member, if they've never been at a birth before, they're not going to be the expert on how to provide comfort and care. And so by having a doula, that makes so much difference in the room, just by like the energy, as a midwife, I can be a lot more relaxed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you got it covered. I had to like do all my notes.
Yeah.
So I have to try and remember what it was later. And yeah, it usually works really, really well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think definitely, yes, there are some, women that are, savvy or fortunate enough to engage that known continuous midwife. But I've had clients that have, done all of that and they've layered in the doula as well. They're like, I'm not taking any chances, because it could be that midwife's, fatigued out and can't be actually attending. It could be, any sort of number of reasons they're on leave, all sorts of things. And then, of course, then you've got the cohort of women that may not even have that known midwife, which is, it's a significant number. I think we're still around the 80% nationally if not more, that don't have continuity of care. So yes, you might be able to access midwifery care, but you don't know that person. So at least you can bring in with you the support, the relationship for, when birth's going normally, or, when it's going sort of in the ranges of normal. That's all you need is support. And then you've got on standby, with your midwifery, team or providers, you've got that additional clinical expertise when you're ready to draw it in. So it's, you kind of can't lose.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. One of the other things I love is that often the partner, like for most women having a baby, it's usually their male partner or their husband. Often they've not been thinking about having a baby from the time they were, a child, and even less so about the actual birth moment. So for them to also be able to get support from someone that they know, and someone that they trust and have like education with and things is like such a massive bonus as well. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a nice little segue there, which leads me into these are the kinds of offerings that I've been developing or have developed and am working on. As I said, education for me is a huge passion. So I have a comfort measures class, which is like 90 minutes of jam-packed, just all the things, all the doula tricks, all the stuff that, we write a bit of a shopping list, or a gathering list. So it's a really sort of valuable exercise for couples that have the deep dive, the comprehensive, which is kind of, it's about 8 to 10 hours. So we usually do it over 2 sessions. And then we have our birth mapping, which is, like once you sort of know the things that you need to know about how birth works, or how you sort of see birth playing out, is you document this, and that's something that you either hand to your support team at home, or that you're taking into wherever you're planning to give birth. You discuss that in advance with them. You take it in, so it's a legal document that they pop on your file, and obviously it's referred to again when it's time for you to give birth. Another baby I am gestating is the Woman to Mother Immersion course, which it's something that's still sort of coming along, but it'll be exciting when it does. And I worked with Maternity Choice Australia to develop an early pregnancy crash course. We've just sort of done the skeleton of that. I'm pregnant or I'm having a baby, what next? So we've applied for a grant. We weren't successful with that one, but that is certainly something to be watching this space for. And then I guess I thought I would sort of wrap up with just a little bit about, or a little bit from some of my clients. So I quickly just sort of sent some messages to ask a few of my more recent clients about, in a sentence or two, what would you say? How did I make a difference in your birth space? What was it? What was it? So one of them, she said she did really well, kept it to her one sentence. I felt more held in the hospital setting, having Hayley there, and a large amount of trust and safety. Another client, she said, it's really quite poetic, quite beautiful. Imagine yourself completely free of worries, stress, and all anxiousness with the delivery of your baby. This is what it felt for me, having Hayley's presence and support in my birthing suite. It was reassuring knowing I had Hayley to mediate between myself, my husband, and our midwife, someone who could advocate my wishes and desires, someone who could be the voice needed to be heard, to drum out the outside noise, to offer encouragement, and to remind me that I was indeed fearless and capable of delivering my son into this world. So it's pretty blown away that she just quickly whipped that out in a text message. And then another one said, Hayley provided support my husband and I to really drop into the birthing space. Having her presence there with us as someone who understood our capacity to birth without intervention, and natural physiological birth created another layer of trusting in our experience. Hayley supported us to stay calm, offering peaceful understanding of the process of birth. Having another person with us to provide physical support, comfort, and offering advice contributed to a beautiful and authentic birth experience. And then she adds, if we hadn't had Hayley's support, there would have been a lot more stress in our birthing space. As I went through the natural oscillations of birth and voicing my struggles, without Hayley's voice of calm and experience, my husband would have fell into a state of doubt. Inevitably, this would have affected his ability to offer me support and presence, and therefore could have interfered in my birth process. So I think it's really lovely because, you know, people, you know, clients will say, oh, I couldn't have done it without. It's like, yeah, you could have, but I guess, you know, it's kind of more fun this way. We all sort of relax and enjoy it a bit more. So that kind of wraps it up. I could talk and talk and talk, but time for questions.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. So there's some questions that a couple of people sent through when I asked for anyone to submit questions this week.
Yeah.
And then I've also come up with a few of my own.
Yes.
But if anyone else on this call, Nikki, you're on, if you have any questions, please do jump in as well. I really apologise as well if I'm a bit distracted. I'm the only one. We've got a new puppy. So this guy's trying to sleep, but he's not doing a very good job. Yeah, so if I keep him down, that's why. Cool. So this is for you, Hayley. How did you decide to become a doula?
Oh, that's a good one. I was pregnant with my last daughter, and this was my fourth pregnancy. The third was the surrogacy. So I've always kind of been a little bit birth nerdy and a bit obsessed. And I kept, you know, I'd realized the value of a midwife, and I'd had the same midwife for the last two births. And I just kept talking and asking questions and, you know, what about this and what about that? And she's like, you don't really need to do that. Like, you've kind of figured all this stuff out already. And I was like, no, I want to, you know, I just kept sort of. And then I was just like, oh, you know, I can't just have this baby and then have more and more and more babies. But I want to stay in this space. But it's too many children to keep just doing pregnancy and birth. I can't do that. So I was like, oh, I've got to find a way that I can stay in this realm. And so I started on maybe a doula. So
that's really cool. So did you have doulas at your births? And if you didn't, do you wish you had?
Yeah, no, I didn't have any doula support. I did talk to a doula during that pregnancy when I sort of was like, oh, I'm thinking about training, and that was kind of, you know, retrospectively, it was more research. And I just, she was a lovely person, but she, for me, it wasn't that I didn't want her in my space. It's just that we just sort of like, it just didn't go anywhere sort of really, you know, she was doing all sorts of other things at the same time with other trainings and stuff. So it just kind of, I never really booked her in and moved forward on that. But I really, really wish I had a doula when I was birthing the surrogate baby. My midwife was amazing because she cared for me. She cared for the baby when there was a baby after, you know, birth. She cared for the two parents, and of course she accommodated my husband and children in, you know, in their various interactions, and the other couples. Yeah, it was a big responsibility, and you know, I mean, it's hard enough for a midwife, even just in a more typical setting with just a couple. That's, you know, that's hard enough just getting all the things done. So she was great, but it really there were times when she just couldn't be everywhere at once, and we all understood, but I would have definitely benefited from someone else completely impartial, who was just there, just making sure I was emotionally okay. Because you know, we had a really positive overall. Some surrogacies, like the journeys can have ups and downs, and more downs than ups. Ours was overall really positive, but there are still hiccups along the way, and just having that extra layer in there would have been fabulous. Yeah,
I can see how that would be amazing. Another question that came through is, how many births do you get to be at?
I guess it's like, it depends on each doula and how much they want to take on. I guess a lot of full-time doulas have a similar full-time caseload to midwives, which is around four births per month, or 4 clients per month, or really it's 4 guest states per month. Me personally, I don't take on that kind of caseload, just with my other commitments with family, and small, the small person, it kind of, still demands a lot from me. So, and I also find that energetically, I've had sort of three women due within a week of each other. It worked out okay. They were all spaced out, but energetically it can be really quite draining to have. I couldn't imagine sort of having that sort of just on repeat. It would be, and because, there's a lot that I do, we do the education, but there's a lot that I do. It's just sometimes I'll just go and like, I might spend an hour researching something that I only sort of pass on about, 5 or 10 minutes worth of what I've found. So, I'm also very selective about what, sort of making sure that the evidence that I'm passing on is rigorous and robust. So all of that takes time. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. If I'm interviewing a doula for myself, what questions should I ask?
Yeah, there's some I would actually say look up, there's some great little guides. I don't even have them on hand, but there's some really good guides to ask. But I think first of all, you need to ask yourself some questions. So, ask yourself, what do you see for your birth? And ask yourself, what do you see the support, or, that you've already got, that that will provide that. And if there's gaps, that's what you need to talk to that doula that you're considering. You need to ask the doula, can you do this? It might be that you need support more for your partner to know, it might be that your partner needs guidance and practical tips, or just calming, so that they can just not annoy you. So some of that's really just that they're doing that self-work. I guess for the people that are more like, all right, no, just give me some, don't make me think. The other questions you might want to be asking is, and I don't know, I don't like the one, how many births have you been at? Because the number's not really important. It's you might want to know like what are some of the energies, or how did some of the clients feel? So can you get some reviews from previous clients? Can you have a conversation with past clients? What kinds of people are drawn to that doula? So those are kinds of the questions I would advise. And I guess you could also be, thinking about a number of appointments, and, where do the appointments take place, and those kinds of practical things as well. I guess it would depend on how much that doula has, in terms of her marketing and her, general information. I think I found that if I give everyone as much information as possible in, information PDFs, my website, that kind of thing, they can sort of get their head around all of that. And then when we're talking, it's really just to see if they feel like they can, to step into that trusting relationship. Yeah.
That's a good way. The next question was, how do I know if someone's the right doula for me? And I guess that's the answer in there as well.
Yeah.
See what, like, if, for example, if I was pregnant, which I'm not, and was looking at doulas, then I need to see what gaps in my care or in my family support that I'm looking to be covered. So that's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
One that came through a couple of times from people is, how much does a doula cost?
Yeah, that's a good one. I guess, how much do you want to pay? Or how long is a piece of string? Doulas, I guess that again, we're an unregulated industry, so and we're self-employed, so we're pricing ourselves at what it costs for us to provide our service. So I certainly hope that's how every doula is working. I have to pay my way. I have to keep a roof over our head and food on the table. So I work out based on I sort of price roughly on average of how many hours I tend to work with each couple, and and that's how I get to my package fee. So usually it's a fee that's like, it's a package, that's like you don't pay any more kind of thing. It's not really an hourly rate. And it's, and often doulas will will set up a deposit and then a payment plan, or, like scheduled, or, you could probably pay up front as well, if that's your thing. In terms of the range of fees, I've heard of doulas, sort of around $1,100-$1,200 mark. And I've seen some up to $7,000 with their deluxe packages. And I do see sometimes on little mums pages and things like that online is if you get a trainee doula, she'll work for free, that kind of thing. It's a kind of problematic in itself, because so like lots of people, we love freebies, but at the same time, when you invest in something, like particularly in a service and an energetic service like doula support, you'll tend to commit when it's like, this is like serious money. This is a bit of a chunk of of our savings. So when you're doing that investing, that can be it can be, obviously it's an energetic exchange, but it's also extremely valuable in you committing to the process, and you gain benefiting and taking getting the full experience of stepping into your power. So
yeah, that's so true. I do think that when you pay an appropriate amount of money for a service, you do tend to value it more as well.
Yes.
And if it's like, I'm just doing this for somebody's experience, like, it doesn't really matter. Which, like, working as a midwife, I do see some student midwives who need to get experience, and they're required to be following some people through their pregnancy. Sometimes there's like a bit of that attitude going on, so I can see that would also be an issue.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So, where do we find more information on doulas? Is there like any kind of really good info pages you would recommend, or are you just is it more just like searching for doula services in like the local area of wherever a person lives?
Yeah, I guess it's not hard to find the doulas around when you're ready to find one. If anyone's looking for me, that's my details there. Nice segue. So it, like, you jump on any mum's page and doulas in the area, someone will tag in someone, that kind of thing, on Facey. Sometimes a Google search, like some doulas have like they go the whole like web page and all that kind of thing. Like, I've just sort of gone down that pathway and found that that's a bit easier, just to give everyone the info. So I was saying, here's me, and then get in touch if you really sort of want to get to know me. Others are very much like a little bits sort of shared online, but like, let's talk, and they really sort of go like go deep just over the phone or in a big like powwow meet and greet. So but it's sort of, as soon as you start asking, you'll find that person or those that little birthy community will pop up. Yeah.
Awesome. That's so good to know. Thank you. Any last words of wisdom for today?
Happy birthing. Yeah. Gay didn't have any questions?
She hasn't jumped on, but I imagine she will if she...
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey.
Hang on, I've got my earphones on. And
You're right.
It's all right, I can hear you.
yeah, of about second generation, 30 odd years. And back in the early days when I worked in a major tertiary referral centre, doulas always were looked on as not very positive. I don't think most of the midwives, I don't think we understood what their role was. And so, yeah, I saw this because now I work in a little country hospital and I've got daughters coming up to the age of birthing. And I just wanted to explore for my own personal, I think it's great having finally had a chance to look into what doulas do, and I certainly will be discussing, like talking to my girls about the extra support.
Yeah.
Because the tertiary referral centres, I've gone back and done a few shifts there recently, and the midwives are just so busy. It seems more like a production line than being able to support the family, the space, the women, the clients. So thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
You're very welcome. That's so good to hear that you're able to have the knowledge to even know where to look sometimes. Some people don't even know where to start, so that's great. And I do agree that some of the really big hospitals are kind of very like spaceless birthing environments.
I do have a question though. How do you get around? So a lot of places it's especially with COVID, you're only allowed a certain amount of people. Do they class the doula as a health professional who has the right to be there, or an extra support person, and you can only let so many in?
That's right. It's a very good question, and that's one that's a common question that women have been asking in the last few years. And yes, there has been a lot of devastated women who've had to choose between their partner and their doula, that they've known that to support their physiology, or for whatever reasons that they need that extra person, and they've been denied that. So yeah, it's been a pretty brutal time. Obviously it varied state from state, and sort of sometimes even regional sort of health services and how that was all legislated. In terms of my sort of experience, I never had to miss a birth, partly because of the way things landed, and partly because we've done a fair bit of advocacy, and with some actual maternity advocacy groups to get that guarantee that there can be two support people. So that's definitely something for women, if that's something that is important to them, to then tap into those other resources and get that collective sort of pressure, so that yes, I think there was the odd exemption made as well, but it was far more successful, I think, when and even like media involvement and some of those kinds of things that was more likely that they could have that second support person.
Yes.
Thank you. I've got to go to work, so thank you very much. It was fabulous.
You're welcome.
Bye.
See ya.
I haven't ever been personally involved recently with someone not being able to take a doula into their birth, but I do see online and have heard from a couple of people that there have be the exemptions where it's only one support person, etc. And for some, it's good because they know that if their partner gets COVID and it's going to be really difficult to have them at the birth, and they've got to back up as a doula.
Yeah. There's
and
been
there's also-
some really creative support options. So there's been a lot of virtual support offerings coming out. So there's some, particularly in the States, because there was, restrictions for so long, and doulas there's about 6% uptake of doulas in the US. So it's a very it's a far more widely known and accepted I guess sort of industry over there and culture. So whilst they rarely got recognized as as staff, that was the other thing, is some health services or hospitals would sort of acknowledge that the doula was not a support person, but that was not an employee but not a support person, and so they got around it that way as well. But that was, I guess that's in the States it was that very much lots of doulas have been doing their thing for a long time, and so they just sort of went, right, we're going virtual, and and if things change and we can come in, we'll come in, but if not, we're still staying on call, we're still and so they sort of found, and I guess that would be the really exciting thing, I guess, is that if a woman actually felt like she was still wrapped up and held virtually, like all the more power to her, so I think that if she's feeling confident to do it even without the physical presence, then it's another opportunity for women to show how incredible and amazing and strong and awesome they are in birth. So,
I've also heard of some people basically asking to talk to the manager. So going to the manager of whatever maternity service that they're using, and going, look, this is my birth, this is what I really want, I'm having a doula, and you're kind of just having that discussion about this is what I need, and I need you to agree to this, because I'm not coming to hospital unless you do. Or other conversations aren't quite so black and white, but definitely that personal lobbying for them to be able to have a doula has really helped some people, which has been good.
And the stats back it up. Like, there's data to show. I mean, of course, you don't know that for you it's going to be a guaranteed, but of course there's no guarantees in any birth experience. But the data is very clear that having a doula improves outcomes. So going in there and just stating a case is very very, and even if you don't, get approval, sometimes there's ways around, just it depends on who's on the day and things like that. And there's, So
I'm looking forward to next week's session, because our All About Doulas is based for health professionals, which would be great. I know working as a health professional, I never got taught about doulas in my training. I never knew anything about them, except that whenever someone mentioned them, there was a bit of a negative connotation. And I always had this feeling of, but why? If that's an extra support person who's also supporting the husband or the partner, and is doing so much hands-on comfort stuff for the mom, how is that a bad thing? And I think there were always stories of old doulas that would tell the midwife of a doctor or the professional their opinions, and they were almost trying to take over the medical space, which obviously if I wasn't in their actual scope of practice wasn't great, but I think that's maybe just happened once or twice, and that's enough for the whole realm. Get a bit of a reputation, although it's never ever been a problem. Anywhere that I've not been in years. So it'll be really great next week to be able to discuss that a little bit.
Yeah, some of those socio-cultural contexts, absolutely.
Yeah, and how doulas are like a really great addition to a birth team.
Yeah.
And they kind of free up a lot of emotional and like physical space for the people that are working with the mum, because they have less to try and get done. In terms of the mum's got great support. Like you don't need to try and be everywhere at once. For once, which is nice.
Yeah, and I think just acknowledging that the system often fails women, not because any person, provider, wakes up in the morning and goes, I'm going to go to work and make that birth go bad. Like, that's not what happens. But the system fails women a lot of the time because of a whole range of like tiny little to, quite significant, problems amidst it. You'd be naive to say that is not the case. It's just, yeah, that's how it is. So go in there, eyes wide open, and go, yeah, I know the poor midwife's got these competing demands, and I know that that there's an over medicalized sort of bias to the way care is provided, and I'm aware of all of these things, but I'm coming in forewarned and forearmed. I'm bringing in, I'm getting educated, and I'm bringing in extra support. No blame and shame. Just there's I'm aware of the limits of what's what's on offer, and I've got contingencies in place.
So smart. So we'll see you next week.
Yes, cool.
Bye.
Bye.